Hi, welcome to Ben and Barry on Football. My name is Barry Sterling Mitchell, and my compadre in crime here is.
My name is Ben Dickerson.
We'll do a quick introduction. Again, I'm Barry Sterling Mitchell. I produce the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings. Ben and I have been best friends for close to 40 years, and we've been arguing about football the
40
entire
years.
time. Yes, absolutely. So we figured, hey, why not put it up on YouTube and get somebody to laugh and maybe some good information? So, again, my background, we've actually played ball. If you look in the background, that's a picture of us in the 1983 Classic, the championship. And so, we've been around the game for a long time, and having developed the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings, it gives us a unique way to look at the NFL, and especially when it comes to matchups. And this is the matchup show. So we're going to talk about week 13?
Week 13.
Holy mackerel, man. Again, as football fans, you hate to see the season go by so fast. Man, it just seems like we waited all year for it. We got through the preseason, and then the season is just whipping by. It's absolutely amazing that we're in week 13. But there are some awesome matchups, and things are getting tight. Now things have playoff potential.
Everything has playoff implications at this point. A lot of teams that you may have thought would be out of it by now are not.
Yeah, there's some hangers on there, some teams that are trying to creep in. And we're going to talk about all of that. So, you ready to get started?
I'm ready.
All right, we're going to get started here. Yeah. So, this little rough chart that I put together here kind of gives you an idea about what we're going to talk about. At the top, you see the teams that are facing each other. The first column is your away team. Second column is your home team. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So, Dallas is going to be hosting New Orleans. The Saints have to come in. Again, another dome, right?
Oh, yeah.
So,
They got a hole in their dome, so God can watch his favorite team.
Well, maybe so.
That's what they
But
say.
God's going to have to figure out how to handle the New Orleans Saints. And I think Saints have actual close connection to God.
Don't get me started.
In any event, NP stands for net points. TOD stands for turnover differential. Todd is a very important, I want to call it a person because it says Todd, but it's a stat, very important stat. We have what's called the bias, and the bias is the difference in net points between the two teams that are playing each other, and it favors the team with the greater net points. The turnover differential bias does the same thing, and the bias plus is when we combine those two, and we call the resulting number just the bias plus score, and depends on who it favors. So let's take a quick look at the first game. We have New Orleans visiting Dallas. The New Orleans Saints have a 132 net point bias in their favor over Dallas, and a 5 turnover differential bias over Dallas, giving them a bias plus score of 137 in favor of the New Orleans Saints.
Correct. I love the New Orleans Saints this year. Drew Brees breaking records and all that. Very prolific offense. If you watched our net point video, you will see what a large edge they have over the 4th and 5th team in the power rankings, and a pretty good edge over the Rams and the Chiefs also. So that being said, I expect that to continue. I don't want to poo-poo what Dallas is doing defensively so far, especially lately. But the Saints should be a little bit too much for them. They have too many weapons. They have too many ways to attack you, and their defense is improving. So although Dak's been playing pretty well, and they've got their running game going a little bit, the big difference in this game, hopefully, I'm sure the Cowboys are hoping that it continues to be Amari Cooper. He had his breakout game last week. If the Saints can keep him under control, because you can't keep Zeke under control, but if you can keep Amari Cooper under control, keep the big plays down, they should have no problem beating Dallas.
And the thing I think is different between the two offenses, especially, is that the Saints have what I would think of as a mature offense. I mean, they've been doing what they've been doing all along.
Yeah.
The Cowboys are just finding their offense now. They're finally getting their footing. They're like, okay, we got a receiver now. Somebody replace Dez. We're actually good. Hey, great idea. Let's use our running back. So they somehow discovered the fact that they have Zeke there, and let's feature him, to set up everything. And across the NFL, we're going to talk a little bit about teams that are finding their running games, and
Yeah.
It's going to make a difference. It's going to moderate the net points down a little bit too, because it eats up clock, it eats up yardage, but it keeps the score. Sometimes it keeps the score manageable for that team who's a major underdog, or has the net points going against them.
Speaking of finding your running game, that next game we got coming up, we'll speak to that. We're talking now. That was a Thursday night game we talked about.
Yes. So that's going to be a game everybody gets a chance to see because it's the only game of the night. Sunday kicks off with Baltimore, Atlanta. In Atlanta, Baltimore has a 100 net point bias in their favor. Atlanta has a turnover differential bias of 4 in their favor, netting out to Baltimore having a bias plus score of 96 in their favor for this game.
Yeah, that's a good thing. If you're an Atlanta Falcons fan and you're waiting for the offense to turn back on again, good luck. Matt Ryan, who seemed to be off to a record pace at the beginning of the season, has fallen off. It's not totally his fault. Injuries have depleted their running game, offensive line-wise and running back-wise. Julio Jones cannot seem to be able to find the end zone. Sanu looks like he's playing injured. I'm going to have to take a look at that. And Calvin Ridley's still just a rookie. He's just finding his way. So their offense is real shaky. We won't even talk about their defense. They're basically horrible, okay? So here we go with a team like the Baltimore Ravens, who, like we just mentioned, have seemed to have found their running game again. At the beginning of the season, I think it was between Alex Collins and Buck Allen. Both of them have fallen off, and a rookie has emerged, Gus Edwards.
Okay.
The running game is solid now. Now they can start to move the ball around. Oh, Flacco's hurt. Guess what? Let's add something else onto that running game, Lamar Jackson. Yeah, too much for Atlanta. Way too much.
Baltimore is ranked 15th in scoring with 271.
And I'm surprised at that.
In defense. It was only giving up 198.
Right.
Atlanta is 11th in scoring, but 29th in defense.
And should be much higher than Baltimore in scoring.
You would think.
You would think, but they're not. And that those numbers tell me it's too close for Atlanta to be able to hold serve at home. Baltimore is going to keep the score low and let Lamar and Gus Edwards go to work.
An interesting game here. The Denver Broncos visiting the Cincinnati Bengals, who just lost a series game to the Browns, helping the Browns make history. Like they actually, have a winning streak going. Denver has a 71 net point bias in their favor and a turnover differential bias of 5 in their favor, giving them a bias plus score of 76 favoring Denver here.
Cincinnati's home, but I think they were home last week too when they took that beating from the Browns. So home field advantage means absolutely nothing for the Cincinnati Bengals. Their coaching staff has got to be in disarray if it isn't already. I heard somebody on television use my line that Marvin Lewis must have pictures of somebody.
Did they really?
Yes, they did. That's exactly what he said. He said, I do not know how Marvin Lewis wasn't fired 5 to 10 years ago. He must have pictures on somebody. I guess Hugh Jackson won't have to worry about any ex-players handling the ball after they pick it off. But they're in trouble, man. Their defense is just they can't stop a nosebleed. They're really in bad shape. And my man, Case Keenum, is being Case Keenum, doing just enough with the weapons that he has on offense and the Von Miller-led defense. This game should be pretty interesting, probably early, but I expect Denver to pull it out. Also, when we're talking running games again, two-headed monster, Royce Freeman Philip Lindsay. If you play fantasy, you should know about Philip Lindsay. If you're a Denver fan, I know you do. If you don't know about Philip Lindsay, it's probably too late to pick him up now because everybody else knows about him already. Great running back. He's going to be a great running back.
The Denver Broncos are net points 0.
They're right in the middle of the pack.
Right in the middle of the pack.
Okay.
19th in scoring, 13th on defense, 7th in turnover differential with +6.
Okay, so not great anywhere, but still balanced.
Balanced. Cincinnati's coming in with the 29th with -71 net points. They're 13th in scoring, but they're 32nd, dead last in defense and right in the middle in turnover differential with just +1. So pretty much what you
29th and 32nd in 2 categories respectively. That's not going to get it.
That's not going to get it. So we'll have to see how that goes from there.
Who we got next?
LAR, Los Angeles Rams.
Back in business off the bye week.
Coming in to Detroit. We don't know what's going on with the Lions. The Rams are 155, have a 155 net point bias in their favor and a 17 turnover differential bias in their favor, giving the Rams a 172 bias plus score in their favor going in.
172 game. Okay. We just talked about Baltimore and Atlanta with a bias plus of 96 in Baltimore's favor. Denver with a bias plus of 76 in their favor. Now we're looking at the Rams at a 172. Forget about it.
And guess what? It ain't the biggest bias of the weekend.
And it's, there's more? Oh, God, there's bigger. Yeah, I'm just glad to have them back off their bye because I missed watching them last week. You know?
And you said Taqib Ali?
Taqib Ali is coming back, take care of his corner, take a little pressure off of my man on the other side. And whatever little flaws they may have had in their front seven, I think they kind of got them ironed out.
Okay.
And I think it's kind of a Khalil Mack effect that he had on the Bears. I think Aaron Donald has decided, I'm just going to raise my game and everybody else follow me. He's been incredible. He's been a monster. Yeah. Detroit has no chance. Sorry.
So you're not going to go against the bias in this case.
No, sir.
All righty. Arizona Cardinals traveling to Green Bay. Now, did you hear Aaron basically lay out the rest of the season? He said in order to do anything, you have to play the Cardinals and win. Play the next team and win. Play the next team and
win.
No,
he didn't.
Yes, he did. Oh, you didn't hear this? Oh, yes. He laid it out.
He is so... That's like when he did the relax thing.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. Yeah. But Green Bay has a 135 net point bias in their favor and a turnover differential bias of 9 in their favor, giving them a 144 bias plus score in Green Bay's favor. So Aaron, again, no, this is the Cardinals. Now the thing about them is that every once in a while they'll raise up and play
defensively,
at least, and maybe Fitzgerald gets off a little bit. Maybe. I don't expect that much out of him, but
I'm going with the bias. Essentially, I'm looking at this, and if any team has a home field advantage, at least from support from their fans, it's usually Green Bay, although I think it's starting to waver a little bit because people do not like the direction that this team is going, and they're not their usual dominant selves. However, this is what we call a get-right game for the Packers. I just don't think that the Cardinals are going to be able to go up there to the somewhat frozen tundra.
Yeah, it's cold.
I don't know how cold it is. Is it real cold up there now?
They got snow and all that kind of stuff going on. I mean, it's cold here because we're just feeling the after effects of rain coming down from, what's going on over there and from Canada, like down through Canada, Great Lakes. It kind of got here, and we're not going to get the snow. Actually, here it's sunny next. That's a whole nother conversation. So that's the deal. Green Bay with a 144 bias plus score in their favor.
Yeah, still riding their newly found running game with Aaron Jones.
Finally. It's amazing because I'm hearing the same thing about so many teams. It's like, we have a running back.
Yeah.
At week 13. They just as go.
I don't think these guys just woke up one day and went to the meeting and said, you know what, I'm ready to be dominant now. I mean, these guys practice. They're in the facility every day. They see them every day. I could see if maybe guys got fumbling problems or maybe stinks in pass protection. But if you run really well, you have to stink in pass protection for me to take carries away from you. That doesn't make sense. It's counterproductive.
Well, again, and it seems to me like, you know, a lot of these teams in the early part of the season when the weather's nice, you know, they just seem to tend to want to lean on their passing game. And now they know it's got to come.
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, the Rams is a team that they ran the ball from day one. You know what I mean? So that's your model of what you need to be doing. You don't discover your running game in week 13. Now they got, you know, but it might work for some of the teams. You know, it might work for the Eagles. We'll talk about
this whole committee thing. I think is the ruin of many a team.
Committee, running. You don't like the committee?
No, it only works for a couple teams, and I've only seen it really work with the so-called two-headed monster. This three running back thing
last year.
That's not why they won now.
It helped. Well, let's face it. You know, your RPO don't work if you don't have a running game.
But you don't need three guys to run RPOs.
Well,
if you have one good running back, you can still run RPOs.
Yes, that's true. You don't need three.
The three thing makes it too difficult. Well, they were good at it because each guy had something positive going on for them. But now they still have it, and it's not working because one of them guys is not Blunt, and one of them guys is not Ajayi. Okay, so again, it comes down to talent. Pick the bell cow and the next guy and go with it.
I understand what you're saying. Okay. What's next here? What are we just talking about? Buffalo. Now
they're hot, aren't they? They win like a couple of they're
you know, their numbers are still stink, but that's because they just had games where they just lost big and games where they won big. And even with their fourth string quarterback, they came in and won big.
Yeah, I just like saying win.
Expected anything. And we're getting to that snowy part. We all know about Shady and the snow. Or maybe you don't know, but you better figure it out because that's his time to shine. Carol, what are we talking about? Buffalo, Miami. Miami has a 51 net point bias, is that? And an 11 turnover differential bias, giving them a 62. Because turnovers,
I'm missing something.
A score there. You missing.
Oh, wait. I'm not missing anything. No, I'm not missing like I should have something. I'm missing how they are have the bias in all the categories. But now I see the turnover margin.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it. You know, the Bills are what they are. They have a minus 111 net points going into this game. Yeah. And Miami is simply not as bad. You know, Miami, where are they at? The Dolphins. They're only a few. The Bills they're minus 60. So you have two teams that have negative net points.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Overall. So that just tells you what you're working with. And one team's just less bad than the other.
I tell you what, one team's had a little bit of success lately and one hasn't.
Okay.
So that's the team I'm going with. So the bias says Miami, but I say Buffalo.
You say Buffalo.
Yes, sir.
He's going with Buffalo. All righty. What do we got next? Chicago and your New York Football Giants. This ain't a get right game for the Giants. Chicago's on a 157.
Get right game for the Giants? Hell no.
The Chicago Bears have a 157 net point bias, a 13 turnover differential bias, giving them a 170 bias score in Chicago's favor.
I can only hope and pray that it's a game worth watching. I can only hope and pray that the Giants give them a little bit of run for their money. I don't.
Let's see. Can you get 200 yards out of Saquon?
do that any week you want.
Well, if you get 200 yards out of Saquon, then you might be in the game.
Last week was an all-time low as far as I'm concerned. This season, an all-time low for this season. For all the things that have gone wrong, and all the, Eli's done, and Odell got a big mouth, and to see them throw that game away last week, oh man, that hurt me. That hurt me bad. I don't care if you lose. I know we're not good this year. But not like that. Not like that. And even the networks knew, because they kept putting the camera on Saquon when he was on the sideline. They go back to the play, they go back, he's still over there. And they went back to another play, he's still over there on the sideline. I'm screaming at the television. The fans are probably screaming down on the field. What is going on? Take the Bears, y'all.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. The Bears are the team in this particular situation. All right.
This might be the game where Khalil Mack lowers the boom on Eli and they have to change the quarterback. That'd make an easy decision for him. I'm not wishing that on him. Maybe I should not have said anything. I might have spoken into existence. But I can see that if it happens, I won't be shocked.
Well, Eli don't go out of games too often. You said he don't get
hurt.
No,
he don't get hurt. He never gets hurt.
He never gets hurt. He just, his eyes roll around a little bit, but he gets back up for the next play. So, got to give it to him. Carolina Panthers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Carolina only has a 49 net point bias over the bad Bucks. They have a 25 turnover bias. That turnover differential is huge. Why? Because the Bucks are like the worst team in the league. They are literally 32nd in turnover differential with minus 21.
So they can't stop anybody from scoring, and they don't get no picks.
And they give up a lot. Well, that's the thing. When we know about,
and they throw lots of picks.
And Jameis.
Yeah, I don't want to put it all on them.
A lot of points, but they will turn the ball over a number of times.
Right, and their defense doesn't get it back for them.
Doesn't back for them. So Carolina has a 74 bias plus score in their favor.
Crazy thing is, this could actually be a game. I do not trust Carolina. I really don't. I like Cam Newton. I do. And I think he's playing as well as he can play. He's kept the mistakes down to a minimum. He's really trying to be the right kind of leader. The running game is fantastic with McCaffrey. He's doing everything they ask him to do, inside, outside, catching the ball. But the receiving core is a little jacked up. Like, I don't think Curtis Samuel is ready to be prime time. Devin Funchess is the number one guy there now. But he's kind of, I don't want to say he's a one-trick pony. He just doesn't seem to be as versatile a route runner to be able to be a threat all over the field. The biggest threat they have right now is DJ Moore, and he's a rookie. So, you know what I mean? It's kind of crazy. He's going to have to lean on Greg Olsen, and then their defense isn't playing that well. Where's their defense at in points against?
Carolina's defense is actually,
I see them there 21st.
Right. And you know what's interesting? In points scored, Carolina's 10th. The Bucs are 9th.
See, and that's what I'm saying. This is going to be a game. What's going to need to happen
is where in points against, Carolina's 21st and the Bucs are 31st. And they had terrible turnovers. So,
right. So you would think that if things stand the way they've been, or things go the way they've been going, that it'll be a high-scoring game. The Bucs will be hanging in there, and then Jameis will throw a pick or something where he'll fall and drop the ball, and they'll scoop and score, and they'll lose late. But the Panthers' defense isn't that
it's not
exciting. It's not that dominating, which means that if Jameis has time, he may really run up the score. He may really run up the score.
Some points, no doubt about
it. And then the onus falls on Carolina not to make a mistake and lose the game. This is a tough one to call.
Well, if the turnovers have anything to do with this Carolina's game, So,
That's what the numbers say.
That's what the numbers say. Indianapolis, the surprising Colts. And the surprising Jacksonville Jaguars for
another
completely opposite reason. Indianapolis has a 98 net point bias in their favor and a turnover margin bias of 14 in their favor, giving them a bias plus score in their favor of Indianapolis of 112.
If you told me at the beginning of the season that when these two teams played each other, these would be the numbers, I would say, how? How could that possibly happen? They finally benched Blake Bortles and brought in, wait for it, Cody Kessler. He's still my heart.
And again, Colin Kaepernick out there. So
Colts are going to go down there, enjoy the nice weather, and beat the brakes off them boys. Really. Andrew Luck is playing really, really well. I'm happy for the guy. I'm happy he is fully recovered. Kudos to his doctors and trainers. They brought him along slow. They made sure he was right. The dude is right. The only thing is, and we talked about this earlier, when he decides to take off, he has to learn how to get down. He got to slide. If for no other reason than the same reason that Wentz needs to slide when he breaks out. But they're big. When you're big like that, you're a big target. Big Ben knows how to get down. He gets down. You got to slide, man, because you're such a huge target. And I know they're afraid sometimes, and if they don't do it right, they're the ones that get clipped when the guy dives over them. When they, you know what I mean? Because they kind of sit down instead of really laying out and sliding. And, if the guy catches you with his helmet or a shoulder to your helmet, and you get knocked out, that 15-yard penalty ain't gonna help you none.
Especially
because you're gonna be knocked out.
Because that's the thing, you trying to keep your value as the quarterback.
Yes.
And the difference is that next guy coming in is going to make that negative difference for your team, which can take you straight out of the playoffs. Take you right out of contention. So your sliding is not just for your personal good; it's for the team.
It's for the team good, and I think players forget that sometimes, especially quarterbacks.
Yeah, and like I always say, once you got the first down, everything else is gravy. That's all icing on the cake. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you don't have to try to be Michael Vick and run past. Just get down and
There comes a point sometimes though when you can see the sticks, and it's like, do I slide and have one more yard to go, or do I dive and get the first down? Sometimes you got to make a business decision there at that point. But if you're my franchise quarterback, as a coach, I would rather you err on the side of caution. Take the slide. We can get the 1 yard.
Again, if you can't get the 1 yard, then you ain't Super Bowl worthy.
There you go, so, and that has nothing to do with your quarterback.
Yeah, I'm with you. But I will say this much, right? And you probably remember Ron Jaworski. I dogged Ron Jaworski for years for sliding, and there wasn't nobody except the D-back between him and the goal line.
When sliding wasn't popular, when it wasn't encouraged.
He went down. Ron Jaworski.
If LT hit you as many times as he, you get down too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can only blame him for so much. What do we got next here? Cleveland and Houston. This is one of my intriguing games.
Ooh, this is a good one.
I think it is. Now Houston has what do they have here? I just moved my Okay, they have a net point bias of 81 net points. Cleveland has a turnover margin bias of 10.
Mm-hmm.
That differential goes to Cleveland, but it nets out for Houston at a 71 bias plus score in their favor.
This is going to be a tough one. This is going to be a good game. Cleveland has proven themselves to be quite capable of winning any game that they get in. That's barring if they play the Chiefs or somebody, okay? But they're very capable on offense. The young guys on defense are playing well. Let's remember, the interim coach, now that they fired Hugh Jackson, was the defensive coordinator. So I expect that team, the defense, to continue to improve. But Baker Mayfield's been a revelation for them. He can keep them in any game. Houston's good, but they're not great. They're going to be home, which is a plus for them. They're riding, an 8-game winning streak? Is it 8? Maybe that's too
something
many.
like that.
It might be 6. Anyway, it's a pretty good winning streak. But this is a tough one. I'm going to go with the bias just because Houston is home. But if Cleveland wins this game, yeah, I won't be shocked. I won't be shocked. I think this might be the best game of the week.
Well, again, Houston just won a game where the other team statistically looked like they should have won it.
Yes.
And so that really says something for them. And so the bias is what it is. I wouldn't argue with it either. Let's see what we got up next here. Man, this is some fun. We have the JETS New York Jets and the Tennessee Titans, who just took that L to the Houston Texans with all of those great statistics. Here, Tennessee has a 32 net point bias and a 4 turnover margin bias in their favor. But 36, a bias plus score of 36 is not a lot going into week 13.
It's not a lot, but the Jets did most of their damage early in the season. They've been slowly declining week after week after week, steadily declining week after week after week. I think Tennessee, this should be a get-right game for them. They'll come back home. They'll fix what's wrong. Mariota made it through the game without a major injury. I think they torched the Jets.
I think he's the one that I watched run, and I kept saying he should slip. He didn't. It was Mariota.
It could have been. He's a daring dude.
And he's been injured all season. You know,
off and on. Well, he's got an elbow. That's tough. That's
slide. I don't care what.
Yo, I believe you. I hear you.
You need to have that song. Slide.
Yeah.
Anyway, what do we have next? Kansas City and Oakland. Speaking of a bias plus score, the largest of the weekend.
We have to talk about this one.
Well, we'll just go through it quickly. The Kansas City Chiefs have a 250 net point bias, a 7 turnover margin bias, giving them a 257 bias plus score in the favor of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Right. And after you watched the first video, we were getting on the Chiefs about not getting turnovers. And they have a 7 turnover bias over the Raiders. Okay? So that should tell you something. This game will be no contest. If you have any Raiders on your fantasy team, let me see. You might be able to get a little bit out of the Raiders. Nah, don't bother. I was going to say you might get a little bit out of their tight end, Jared Cook,
right.
who's a main target for Carr, and a little bit out of their running backs because you can run on the Chiefs.
Okay.
But once the Chiefs get the ball a couple of times, that's all out the window. Game flow.
This is the game that I think is real interesting. Kirk Cousins, Tom Brady. What a matchup. And New England only has a 39 net point bias in their favor. Wait a minute. What am I looking at? Yes. 39.
Yeah.
And a 3 turnover margin bias.
That's
so
all.
A 42 bias plus score in New England's favor.
That's
Can
close.
Kirk Cousins go into New England and get that done?
Dude, we know how tough it is for teams to come into New England. But the Patriots are not your normal Patriots. There's all kinds of people, all kinds of talk going on about, is this the year that Tom Brady finally shows that he's slowing down? He's 41 or 42. His arm strength is being questioned. The only thing that Minnesota has to worry about is scoring points. That's all they got to do. I think their defense is good enough to keep Brady on his toes and keep Belichick on his toes with how they get some kind of ball control going on offense. The New England defense is not good at all. They're not good. They're not terrible, but they're not good. And the Vikings have a ton of weapons on offense.
Well, let me say this much now. New England's defense is now ranked 11th. Okay. So they're
Go
not
back and check
great,
their
but
schedule.
they're not, you know.
You can go back and look at some of the teams they played, but,
Okay.
you know.
Okay. I mean, the Minnesota defense is ranked 10th.
Right.
So they're right. They're only 3 points difference in giving up.
I say their schedule's been a little tougher.
New England is 7th in scoring. Minnesota is 19th. So Minnesota is going to have, as you said, going to have to score points.
Right. But they should have plenty of opportunities to score points against the New England defense. That's my point, and I'm going to take Minnesota now.
Going against the 42 bias plus score.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy, isn't it?
San Francisco going into Seattle. Seattle has an 87 net point bias, a 25 turnover differential bias, giving them a 112 bias plus score in Seattle's favor. And Seattle, although I am a Niners fan, Seattle has the bias plus. Yeah, that's my sleeper team. That's the one I've been keeping an eye on all year.
Yeah, we've been keeping it real with our teams. I'm trying to keep it real with the Giants now. I can't bet with my heart anymore. You really never have. You know what you're working with. I mean, but Seattle is living up to your sleeper team tag that you put on them weeks ago. Okay. Defense looking good. Russell Wilson starting to cook. Another emerging running game. Okay. Carson and Davis. And Rashad Penny, the rookie, seems to be able to remember the plays now all of a sudden and has broken off a couple of big runs when they've given him a chance. Okay. But they still seem to be trying to keep it down to just the two. And Carson's playing really well. So that with the defense, Russell, and his new favorite target, which is Tyler Lockett. I like them. I like them in this game quite a bit. I think they'll put up good numbers. Confidence level will be up. Fans will enjoy it.
There you go. Russell turning into Russell.
Right. He's what everybody expects him to be.
Russell's turning into Russell. And again, my Niners are, somewhat in disarray. Nick and Time is coming out now. This is a rival game. This is a division game, so it's always going to be a rough game. I really wish Mostert was still healthy. I think he would help them.
He would help them.
Game. But Breida is the top running back. Juszczyk is the top fullback. Kittle is the top tight end. And if they learn how to use Dante Pettis, as I think they should use him, because he's got speed. So I would help him in terms of spacing field out a little bit, or have him doing that. And I would make him a deep threat in any event, because you got a deep threat on the other side.
He seemed to really be sleeping on Marquise Goodwin. That's my man. I'm telling you.
Marquise has nothing in terms of targets. I mean, they're really just not. And again,
I think these are guys. The routes that they let him run.
I'm a Madden guy, okay? I run these deep crosses. I mean, they're basically, really deep, but they're so fast that they can get from one side of the field to the other before the blocking breaks down. Yeah. Especially if you keep an extra blocker back there. So they can really cross up a defense, and then underneath you've got Kittle, you've got Selleck, you've got your running backs. You can space the field out, and Nick and Time, I think he's kind of not Baker a little bit. Like, he's a little more savvy than what we expected. It's kind of savvy for that guy. But Seattle is Seattle, so I can't say that I expect them to really go in there and handle Seattle. And he's never played in that noisy environment, so Seattle's
better days are ahead for the Niners.
Let's hope so. This looks like the game. Sunday night. The LA Chargers, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Chargers have a 21 net point bias, but an 11 turnover margin.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So all you guys out there,
a
couple of weeks ago, they were talking about, the Steelers defense. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Psych.
Well, the Steelers had at least two that I can remember right off, really like almost egregious turnovers. So, the one at the end with Big Ben that changed the game, but running back. Man, he was out and about. They hit him and that ball flew in the air like 10,
you don't expect to see really bad.
That was like,
and he
I
doesn't.
think the people in the stands could have caught that ball away.
Yeah, he's not a fumbler either. He's pretty safe with the ball. He doesn't drop the ball a lot. So, you know what I'm beginning to wonder? I'm beginning to wonder if he's hitting the rookie wall there a little bit. His last 2 games have been a bit lackluster, just a little bit. I don't know if the whole Le'Veon thing was weighing on him. I don't know what's going on. His last 2 games haven't been stellar, not like what we've seen up to this point in the season. This is going to be an interesting game to watch. I don't know that the Chargers' run defense is anything special, but like I said, the Pittsburgh secondary is a joke, if you ask me. For that team to be as good as they are, those guys are not pulling their weight. That's the way I look at it. But we got the whole West Coast to almost East Coast thing. So.
The bias plus score of 32 is almost the smallest bias plus of the weekend until we get to the Monday night game. And that, my friends, is the smallest bias plus score of the weekend. Washington, a division game, going into Philly. Washington has a 14 net point bias, but a 17 turnover margin bias in their favor, giving them a bias plus score of 31. And if you want to know why the bias plus score is so egregious, the Eagles rank 28th in turnover differential with -8. The Washington Redskins are 4th in turnover differential, +9. So that spread right there really favors Washington. We know they've had tremendous injuries. Eagles have a depleted defensive secondary. Washington.
That was turnover margin you just mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so all you Eagle fans out there, and I'm not gonna trash y'all today or nothing like that. When you're asking what's the difference between last year and this year, and forget the injuries, because you bragged about having injuries and still winning the Super Bowl last year. Okay, y'all not turning the ball over. I don't care who's back there. When your starters were back there, you weren't turning the ball over.
You're not getting takeaways.
You're not getting. Excuse me. I need to be clear. You're not getting takeaways. And your special teams ain't doing their thing either. Remember, early in the season, special teams saved them like 2 or 3 games. So that's something that your team is lacking this year.
Did special teams save them against the Giants? Kick that. They kicked it. Didn't they kick to win the game?
Well, he's supposed to do that. That's his job.
Yeah, but I'm saying special teams.
That's not like running back a punt or something to come from behind.
Okay.
That's his job. They drove down the
That's
field.
their job. Running back?
No, it's not.
You got to give special teams a score. They're the highest. They're probably the highest scoring team on the Eagles. The grouping in the Eagles special team.
I don't know, and I don't
kicking them field goals because the kicker is always the top scorer on the team.
This is the thing. This is the thing. Philly should win. They're at home. Washington's having all kinds of problems, but they're afraid, just like they were afraid last week. Pulled it out last week. They should pull it out again this week.
And who's quarterbacking for the Redskins?
Colt McCoy.
Colt McCoy, who didn't do that great.
Well, they were playing Dallas, weren't they?
Yeah.
Far better defense than what they'll see Sunday.
Hopefully they'll have a little more common sense in attacking that Eagles defense offensively. We'll see.
Than the Giants did. You can say it. I'll say it.
Anywho, that pretty much brings us to the last game of the upcoming weekend. This is Ben and Barry on football. We do have different ways that you can catch up with us. You can find us on Facebook. This is the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings Facebook page at Sterling NPPR if you happen to be on Facebook or facebook.com/Sterling NPPR. We also have the Ben and Barry on football. He's Ben. I'm Barry. As you can see, that's 20. I'm 34. and that's a long time ago. But in any event, we do like to share great information on our Facebook page, and we are also on Twitter. This is an article that I wrote. I do an article, or I try to do a write-up, especially on the single game nights, Monday night, Thursday night, Sunday night, those games, and I try to do an intriguing game of the week. But I did put this out there. What did I have here? Yeah, tonight's NFL offering. And in addition, we are on Twitter. Found some great people on Twitter, and we do try to put out information on some of the great works that they're doing in the NFL. Did you see the story about the young man, like 7 years old, who has epileptic seizures, and they have a thing called Helmets for Helmets?
Yes, I saw that. It's a great piece.
You know, I mean, you get misty-eyed seeing some of that stuff. And we try to share some of those stories when we're sharing the different things in our tweets. So you'll see us retweeting some of that information, because there's a lot of really good community work and things of that nature going on. I think this weekend they're doing the cleats, special causes for cleats. So if you are watching the games, take a look at the cleats. They'll probably focus on that during the games. And so whereas before they wouldn't allow any alteration of the uniform. You know, you had to have your socks at a length, whatever. They loosened up a little bit. They're dancing in the end zone. They let them put causes for cleats, you know. And I think a lot of that came. Who was the guy? And he wanted to put something pink on. His mom had cancer, and then they tried to find. They wouldn't let him wear the pink or something like that.
Oh, you know who that was? It was running back. Running back, Steelers? Long dreads, played for the Steelers. Yes.
Right.
Not in the league anymore. He played for Carolina for years.
Yeah.
I can see him.
Yeah. Probably know who we're talking about. But they've loosened up, and so, you know, they're doing some good work in the community.
Yeah.
And then again, if you happen to just go to the website, www.benandbarryonfootball.com. That's Ben, A-N-D, and Barry on football.com. It will take you directly to our YouTube page. And we try to put up a video before the Thursday night game kicks off as quickly as I can process things and get them up and into YouTube. So feel free to visit us at any of our social media. Leave us a message. If you're on YouTube, click the notification button or the notification link and the little bell or whatever, so that you will get notifications, and follow us on YouTube, Twitter, and on Facebook. Now, that being said, as we wrap up the show, we'd like to take an editorial minute for any rants or special messages before we sign off.
I don't have a real rant. I wouldn't call it a real rant.
Okay.
But a few times now I've mentioned how I really ragged on Andrew Luck about how they babied him through his injury and how long it was taking him to actually start to make a comeback. And I've apologized for that. So now I need an apology from you. I know I'm not going to get one, but I just want to lay down some facts, because nothing says facts like a head-to-head matchup. Okay?
Okay, go ahead.
Talk bad about Kirk Cousins and his $84 million guarantee and all that stuff. And who am I to say that he deserves or doesn't deserve it? But you're saying you give somebody a contract like that, it's Super Bowl or bust. No one player in football makes championship or bust. Basketball maybe, not football. Okay? First of all. Second of all, if a team decides that that's the guy they want, that's the guy they need, they've had ample time to watch him prove himself with a far less talented team, and that's what they want to do, they should be allowed to do it without a discouraging word from you just because you don't like that they gave the money guaranteed. But You slipped up and you said, only time I'd do something like that with guaranteed money would be if I was getting an Aaron Rodgers.
Exactly.
Well, guess
That's
what?
I said.
Last week, the Vikings beat the Packers. Aaron Rodgers, 17 of 28. Packer fans, this is shocking. 17 of 28 for 198. Are you kidding me? In a losing cause. That's terrible. 1 touchdown. He got sacked 4 times. Come on, man. Kirk Cousins, 29 of 38. 342 yards. If you play fantasy, you know what I say. If you can get 300 and 350 out of your quarterback, I don't care what his name is. That's points. 3 touchdowns. I rest my case.
Okay, I'll take that. And yes, I have been tough on Kirk Cousins. I've actually, when he was with the Redskins, when I thought he was better than RG3, I said he was better. And him going to the Vikings, I didn't think he was that much different than, the guy that they already had. And I still don't feel it. And it's interesting that you say this because as I look at points for, the Packers are 17th. They put up 264 with that offense and that all the issues that they have going on in Green Bay. And Mr. Wonderful is 16th with 270. They're only 6 points better. Excuse me. They're 265. They're 16th with 265. They're 1 point better than the Packers. Both of them are overpaid. But if I was going to overpay anybody, it'd have been Aaron Rodgers. And if you put Aaron Rodgers on that Vikings team, you might not be 16th in scoring. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm not apologizing. Kurt, keep up the good work. Good luck. I have a close friend who's a serious Vikings fan that would do nothing more than make his heart if you could actually get them to a Super Bowl. You expect that to happen?
No, I don't.
And like I said,
what was the first thing I said though?
If you got to the brink of the Super Bowl last year,
this guy is going to take us to the Super Bowl in
brink last year, and you go out and you bring this guy in. You didn't bring him in so you could go back to the middle. You brought him in so you could take that next step.
First of all, they're not back in the middle.
Offensively,
they're still in contention. I don't care about that. They're in contention.
Points.
They're in big-time contention for a playoff bid. And once you get a playoff bid, guess what?
Right. Anything can happen,
Anything can happen, right?
It would have to be anything. But the probabilities
are higher than they are for the Packers. In fact, I don't even think that. I think the Packers are one loss away from being mathematically eliminated.
The Packers as a team have problems. So yeah, Aaron has not been,
that's
Aaron
my whole
has not
thing.
been
Was the
able
first
to
thing I
raise
said.
them. But again,
first thing I said, one guy does not a Super Bowl make in football. The Vikings defense is not as dominant as they were last year.
Again,
their run game's not the same as it was last year.
If you make a change and you pay the guy guaranteed money on that change, if you're not expecting to do better, then why did you make the change?
They shouldn't have even beat the Saints in their playoff game.
They shouldn't have beat the Saints, but they did. But they did.
So if you want to go with the bet, but they did, you can be lenient on that when you know that was pure D luck, okay? That the better team doesn't always win. And in that game, the better team did not win, but you can't give him a break that the other 21 guys that go out on the field have something to do with how far they go. If Case Keenum had stayed there, they could be exactly where they are now.
Exactly. That's my whole point. So you didn't have to give them guaranteed money to the same place because it was the same guy.
Why does it have to be about the guaranteed money? Why does it have to be about the guaranteed money? It's not your money, dude. It's not your money. No. It's about wins, losses, improvement, or decline.
Exactly.
That's what it's about.
So I'm saying, this is simply
the fact that the money's guaranteed means
of the business
nothing.
decision. It don't have to be my money. We make the same.
It doesn't make it any better or any worse.
We make the same argument for every team. Was that good money spent? Was it bad money spent? You say the same thing.
But I'm not talking about that.
That's what I'm talking about.
But I'm not. This is my rant.
Well, but you're ranting about me. So I'm saying, I'm just making sure that
stay on subject.
There
stay on subject.
Know why
stay
when
on
I
subject.
talked about
Case Keenum's track record said that he would regress. And he has.
But he's with a different team. So, you know.
So what?
He's with a different team. It's
hard. He's been on 6 different teams. There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that.
And there's a reason why they franchised Kirk Cousins.
Because they knew they couldn't do any better. Because they had to. Come on, man. You know the rules.
They would have kept him. If they thought he would have took them to the
franchise him again?
No.
No. You know why they didn't sign him? Because they refused to pay the money.
Right.
Okay, that has nothing to do.
Why would they refuse to pay the money?
Because they're cheap bastards.
And it's got nothing to do
with
Kirk Cousins.
There's a reason why
look at Kirk Cousins go,
franchised him and paid him more than they
wanted
wanted
to giving him all
because
that
they couldn't do better.
As I said, Kirk, all power to you. Get that money, okay? If they dumb enough to give it to you, take it. I ain't arguing with you. I'm just saying, you know, I don't think it was the smartest business decision on the Vikings side.
I'm done, man. I got to get to my fantasy teams.
Yeah. You want to get to, you got any fantasy advice for these people before we go? You sure?
Yeah, right. I'm sure. In most normal leagues, week 13 is the last week of the regular season. Yeah. Week 14, 15, and 16 are usually the playoffs, depending on how many people make your playoffs. Most conventional, they'll go.
So you're going into the playoffs right now?
Absolutely. Oh, well, no, this is the last regular season game, but yeah.
Great.
I've clinched playoff spots in several.
Okay. What's the clinch?
So if you ain't done it by now, you ain't gonna do it unless you're sitting at one game out of a playoff position, and you need this win. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's tough. My phone is blowing up right now because guys are making trades. This guy just traded Nick Chubb for Jordan Howard and a 5th-round pick next year. Yeah, we trade draft picks. We do it all. This is my main league. We do it all.
Okay.
So
he traded Nick Chubb.
He traded Nick Chubb.
Because it's the end of the season. Nick Chubb he's been throwing down.
The guy that gave, first of all, Jordan Howard hasn't been producing lately. So the guy that had Jordan Howard needed a viable running back. Nick Chubb is a viable running back.
But he put his one last game?
No, he's going to be on his team now.
Right, but I'm saying that, well, I don't know where that guy stands.
He needs more production from the running back position.
But he only got one game regular season, so it's like.
Well, in this particular league, no, we go all the way to week 16.
Oh, do you? Okay.
But nonetheless, even if this was the last game, you can't afford to. If you have a shot at a playoff spot, you can't afford to go in lacking at any position.
Oh yeah.
And if you're lacking at the running back position, you have a chance to acquire a decent running back who will probably
you could get Nick Chubb. And
you want to do that. So that's why he did it. Yeah. Now the guy who gave him contract. Everything's guaranteed in fantasy except what the player does. That's not guaranteed. You got to know your stuff.
Okay.
And you got to keep your fingers crossed.
Both,
yeah, there's a lot of luck involved in fantasy. I've made trades and the guy got hurt the next week. Really? So there's no mulligans. Like you don't get nothing back.
Oh, let me bring this up before we sign off. And I'm a Niner fan, and this week. Ruben Foster.
Notice every time he says I'm a Niner fan, he goes, I'm a Niner fan. He touches his heart like,
that's right. That's where we stand. And, I hated to see Ruben get traded. As we talked about before, you can't really, as far as I'm concerned, fault the Niners. They supported him in some of his, malfeasance in the past, some of his mistakes. Well, I actually listened to the coach, and the coach said, the challenge, especially with the same young lady, apparently this young lady and him have a history, and they apparently thought that him and the young lady were separate, and now they find out they weren't, especially she's in the hotel with them.
This is the same woman, make sure I'm correct on this, that called the cops and called the cops and called the cops and finally got into court and said I made it all up because I was trying to get money out of him.
I don't know if that's the same woman, to be quite honest with you, with all of that. Because he's had a couple different
Number one,
scenarios.
if it's the same woman, he's an idiot. If it's a different woman, he's an idiot.
Well, that's what the Niners are saying. He puts himself in bad situations.
Right, and they're
these
fed up.
decisions. If we can't trust you to keep yourself in a positive situation where you're not going to have that type of trouble, that's why they let him go. The big conversation then turns around to the Redskins, where you have a guy who's a domestic violence suspect because it hasn't been proven, and the Redskins pick him up. And so there's a lot of questions as to
within days
as to whether the NFL is really serious when they start talking about domestic abuse and all of that, because he's not treated like a pariah. They brought him right in. Now, he hasn't been convicted. And I will say this much, from what I understand about his history, his youth history was really difficult in terms of his mother, his father, his upbringing. He probably needs more help. Apparently, but he think of him as a grown man, but he probably needs more help. And I don't know if that's the only question that I have. If he has these type of problems, that are that deep rooted.
Right.
Who was it that we had? And he had he went back.
Alden.
Well, no, Alden was one. I'm talking about back in the day when we won the champions, and he went from
Haley.
And then you find out later that he's bipolar yep. and all of that kind of stuff.
Yep.
If he had known that, and if he had been able at that time to treat it, I don't know if they had the capability to treat it back then.
Probably not back then.
Right.
I don't think they even really understood it back when he was playing, but they do now.
And so I don't know all of what.
Number one, he's got to ask for help. Number two, they got to be willing to give it to him, which I don't see any reason why they wouldn't after the investment that they made. I don't think they did all they did just to let him go.
Right. But they let Alden go, in the same manner. It was like, okay.
Yeah, well, he did some real cuckoo stuff.
And Alden really did. I don't know what it is with my Niners, because this is about the second or third person that we've had that same type of scenario with.
It's just bad luck. Other teams, it happens to other teams too, but they keep it hush-hush somehow. It's happened.
So we'll have to see. That story is unfolding because he still has to go through the criminal system, the hearings, all of that kind of stuff. And the Redskins have pretty much said, well, if you get convicted, we're not going to, do anything. But they snatched him up. And you educated me a little bit on the what's the system called? They picked them off
waivers. The waiver
and I asked
wire.
you just to say a couple things about that. If if you're watching football and you don't know anything about the waiver wire, I've heard of the waiver wire, but I didn't know about it. Just tell me a little bit about how that works.
Well, basically, and I might not be 100.00% correct in the way that I'm explaining it. But according to, there comes a time and a situation where a team might want to put a player on waivers. You may have heard the term, he cleared waivers and now he's free. So if they put you on waivers and a team wants you bad enough, they can pick you up. I believe they have to compensate the team. If nobody picks you up while you're on waivers, and I believe it lasts for a week, then you become a free agent. So some teams will try to wait out the waiver period. And then when it ends, then they'll just go deal with you as a free agent and you go to highest bidder, blah, blah, blah. If a team wants you really bad, they'll take care of whatever compensation is necessary and grab you off of waivers. Now, so that the waiver process actually means something, and I'm not exactly sure how it's done, but I'm assuming that the more you deal with the waiver wire, the lower your number is, or you fall back in line to be able to get someone else off the waiver wire. See? So you're kind of, all the teams are kind of in order.
Okay.
Like, this guy goes on waivers. You got first crack at him. Nah, we don't want him. You're next. We don't want him.
Okay.
Like that. Okay. Otherwise, it would be the same as if they're perfectly free. It would just be a bidding war.
So in this particular case, from what we understand, the other team that had some interest were the Eagles.
Yes, and we know they had interest because they called the Tampa Police Department, and this is verified by the Tampa Police Department that they called and they asked about what happened, how did the case go, what are the details, whatever they could, information they were willing to divulge. They did that. The crazy thing is, the Redskins didn't. And then they lied and said they did. They should have known the press was going to ask. They should have known that. So now they're in a little hot water over that. Although I don't know if there's any penalty for lying, but
just if there was, Gruden would have $1 million fine.
It's just bad optics, you know.
Yeah, that's. But I didn't know about the waiver system in terms of you're up next, and then
if you play fantasy, it's very similar to that.
Okay.
If you go on Tuesday night and say, I want to drop this guy and pick up that guy, and you know he doesn't become a free agent until Wednesday morning, and 10 other people put in for him, how does the computer decide who gets him?
Okay.
It's the waiver list. And the more you do it, the lower on the list you go.
Okay.
The less you do it, the higher on the list you go.
Okay. Awesome. Well, hey, you see what you learned with Ben and Barry on football. We talk about a lot more than just the X's and O's. And really, we don't get into the X's and O's too deep because we're talking about net points, we're talking about points for, points against, bias plus, turnover differentials, all of those things that are a little more big picture. But this is a people business,
right?
And I look at football and I look at the NFL the way I look at life. There's a positive and a negative to everything. You need to recognize both sides, when you're making your decisions or when you're evaluating scenarios. So that's it for me. This is Barry Sterling Mitchell, the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings.
Who knows?
Who knows?